Good evening, boils and ghouls, ghosts and goblins, and all you creatures of the night. And welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing as we kick off this year's All Hallows Eve festivities and reviews. And tonight, we're going to be talking a little Hocus Pocus. And of course, if this is your first visit to the Ambassador Wing, you have come on a most auspicious evening. Hope you all enjoy your time here. Hope you enjoy the review and, of course, enjoy the discussion. And if this is your first visit and you're not already subscribed to the Ambassador Wing, what are you thinking? Hit that subscribe button and check out some of my other videos, check out some of my other reviews, and become a part of the A Wing. And tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking some Hocus Pocus. And with me tonight is the First Lady of the Ambassadorial Wing, a lady who needs no long-winded introduction. You know her, you love her. Well, I love her. The one and the only, Madam
Ambassador.
Hello,
Hello,
sweet.
Ambassador.
Hello, sweetheart.
Hello.
Well, you okay, I don't want to say you pestered me, but you kept recommending, can we watch this? Can we watch this? Can we watch this? Can we review it? Can we review it? Can we review it? And we finally reviewed it. We're kind of finally reviewing it. So,
yes, we are.
And tonight we are not just talking about. We will of course be talking about the original Hocus Pocus, the one that came out in the early '90s, but we'll of course be talking about Hocus Pocus 2. And to the chat, everybody that's watching on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, good evening, one and all. Hope you all are having a wonderful Saturday night. And thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for spending your evening with me and the missus. And as we jump into this review. So, and I want to say hello to a good friend of the Ambassador Wing, Mr. Ace Mowick. Ace, it is good to see you, buddy. Good to have you here tonight. And hope you're having a good night. So, my dear, I've done my thing. I've done my intro. Let's jump into Hocus Pocus.
Let's do it. You want me to take the floor?
Yeah, I just said the floor is yours.
Oh, you cut out for a minute. That's why I wondered what you said.
No, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm not sure what to say except Hocus Pocus is awesome. The first one. We're talking about the first one first. Yes. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, it came out in 1993, 29 years ago, this past July. And I've been a fan for every one of those 29 years of this movie. And it's taken me, how long have I pestered you to watch this movie?
At least a year and a half, give or take.
Yeah, at least it's been a couple of years anyway.
And I finally said, okay, fine, I will watch it, and I will be the first to admit, the first one, the original, I did very much enjoy. I did not expect I would, but I honestly can say I did. And when we think Halloween, and to let y'all know, this is the first in a series of Halloween reviews I'll be doing this year. I always do Halloween movies around Halloween, like October, obviously. So, and wanted to kick off this year with something a little more silly, a little more goofy, but also within the theme of Halloween, obviously. And I did not know what to expect when I first saw this and everything. We rewatched it the other night, and I will admit the first one has really grown on me. I really do enjoy it. Obviously this has a very good cast and everything. The first one in particular, you've got obviously Bette Midler, you got Sarah Jessica Parker as two of the three Sanderson sisters. You've got a young Thora Birch as the sister. I hate to say this, but I cannot recall the name of the brother or anything. Max Dennison, but
Omri Katz.
Omri Katz. Okay. And of course, you have one of many famous talking cats in this movie. You of course have Thackeray Binks. And this movie starts out in the This movie starts out in the what is it? The 1800s? No, 1600s, if I remember correctly. No, seven or is it
1693.
1793? Oh,
1693.
1693. Excuse me. Thank you, dear. And we get the origin of the curse, and it's it is of course we are introduced to the villainesses of this movie. Of course, that is of course the Sanderson sisters, and I'll be honest. This is the only movie, well, no, actually, only one of two movies I have seen that stars Bette Midler. The other one being, of course, First Wives Club, which I also love her in. I will say it here. I love Bette Midler in this part. I love her as the eldest Sanderson sister. So, and I do want to
As
say hello
Winifred.
to, huh?
As Winifred.
Winifred Sanderson. Thank you. Yeah, I actually was drawing a blank. So, and I do want to say hello to the chat. Some old familiar faces, some friends of the A Wing. Good to see you, fellas. And Big Geek, Superior Hero Collectibles guys. Good to see you, and pleasure. Appreciate y'all being here tonight, and of course, hope you enjoy the stream. So, and of course, Geek and Big Geek being in Big Geek, he's like, amok, 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 amok. So,
I love when Sarah Jessica Parker does that line.
I
And then Winifred hits her right in the stomach.
Yes. She's like, what a glorious morning. Makes me sick. But, honey, let me ask you. I mean, what is it about Hocus Pocus that appeals to you so much?
I think
Because,
what started out was history because
Mhm.
it focuses in the beginning of the movie on the time of the Salem witch trials. And through my family legacy, and also interesting enough, I'll bring this up in just a minute, I can trace on my mother's side back to the Salem witch trials, but also Sarah Jessica Parker had a relative that was a witch. Okay, well,
Mhm.
not a witch, but was um, claimed to be one, but she wasn't executed or anything. But the
Mhm.
history of it just always just fascinated me, and so that's what drew me into this movie. Plus, it was
Mhm.
Disney, and it was just a fun movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's wholesome, it's clean, it's fun, it's kid friendly, but also it's something that adults can watch too with their kids. And I think that's
Right.
what is most appealing about movies like this, about Hocus Pocus. An adult can go with their kids and not be bored to tears.
That's
So,
true.
and of
Plus,
course,
I always loved the talking cat too.
yeah,
Binks.
Thackeray Binks. Oh, by the by, just the cutest freaking line of the movie. Indeed, indeed, MB, indeed. So, honestly, this was a movie I did not see until, well, you. I don't want to say you pestered me, but you kept encouraging me to watch this with you. And honestly, I have to say, I am truly glad I did. I mean, this wasn't something that I would have watched when I was a teenager because this I
Mhm.
was a teen. Obviously, I was a teenager in the '90s, and this came out in '93. I was leaving junior high, going into high school, and it just wasn't even remotely on my radar. I mean, I was more into, well, slasher flicks and monster movies. I
Right. And
wasn't
see, I
really into.
wasn't. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sweetie.
I was gonna say, I wasn't allowed to watch the slasher movies or anything like that. So for me, Halloween, this, yes, I know, but for me, this was Halloween. This and also Halloween Town when it came out as well. But
Hmm.
for me, Hocus Pocus started Halloween season, and it's something the tradition my mom and I just started. We'd watch it every year, and then when it finally came out on VHS, tells you how long ago it's been. We would watch
Hmm.
it, I don't know, 6 or 7 times a year, just when we were in the mood to watch it because it's that good.
Hmm. And I will admit, for a '90s film, the production was incredibly well done. I mean, it's well put together, it's well directed. I will say the performances by the adults and the kids alike were very solid. I mean, Bette Miller is known first and foremost as a singer, not so much as an actress, but she has proven to be anything when she was acting and everything. I know she came back obviously for the sequel, that she can act, that she does have decent acting chops, that she does have a decent acting ability. So, and of course, you've got a good cast around her and everything. You've got now. You're gonna tell me with this one. What is the name of the actress who plays the other sister? Um,
Oh, Kathy, is it Najime?
you're gonna have to tell me, honey. I don't remember.
I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I'm not good with last name.
So,
uh, Kathy, Najime, and Sarah Jessica Parker.
okay, gotcha. So, and thank you.
And I was going to address MB Geek's comment about why they put the movie out in July of '93. And actually, the reason why is because they had, I believe, The Nightmare Before Christmas coming out that October. And that's why they didn't put it out the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah, because it would have conflicted with one another, and both movies would have been potentially a wash. And it's
Exactly.
funny. And it's funny because this isn't the only holiday movie, and we can talk about this briefly, that came out in July rather than around the time of year when it would have been appropriate. And I'll just mention this briefly. It's a Wonderful Life did not come out in November or December. It came out in July of the year it was released. And I actually talked about that on my uh, It's a Wonderful Life review I did back, I think it was actually last year. So, but, this movie is very much centered around the outsider, people being outsiders, and also is centers very strongly around the themes of family. And you've got an older brother, younger sister. The older brother doesn't want anything to do with his younger sister, which is the norm. Um, he thinks she's a drag. He thinks he's a pest, and he kind of snaps at her and hurts her feelings. And then he's like, "I just screwed up." Max is
Yeah.
like, "I just screwed up," and he's like, "I need to make things right." So he goes over to his little sister and he's like, "I was a blockhead. I acknowledge the fact I was a blockhead. I'm sorry." And he's like, "Let's go finish trick or treating." And of course, they come to the old Sanderson house, of course, and no, well, of course, not before we meet Max's love interest.
Yes, Vanessa Shaw.
Yeah. So, um, let me ask you, honey, the special effects for this movie, what did you think of them?
As special effects go, I think it fit the period pretty well. I mean, you can, of course, I have it on, we have Hocus Pocus on HD, so you can see a lot clearer now. But back then, you could tell that there was the parts like with Binks the cat, like when he first starts to talk, when Max slips on the floor in the Sanderson house, when he sets off the sprinkler system, and you could see it. And now you can, there's a better transition. And at the time, you could see that transition. Now you can't. It blends together very well.
Yeah.
But I think the effects, they did a good job considering it was in the '90s and things were just starting to click and roll together like they do now.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially with Stitch.
nowadays we have a whole different world compared to 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, I will say this: the effects for Binks as a cat were solid for the time, and us, and I mean, they were very cutting edge considering and everything. Now, you could obviously tell back then that this was a CGI'd face or anything on Binks, but the care the effects aside, the character himself, he's like, "I'm doing anything and everything I can to keep the Sandersons from coming back," when in fact it's the Sandersons coming back, and Max and his sister and the other girl. I can't remember the name of the huh?
Allison.
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 That's what I said, Allison.
I know.
Okay. Actually freeing the sisters is that actually reunites him with his sister Emily.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's it's, being an only child, not having any siblings or anything except for the few dozen cousins I have. Yes, I say that. No joke aside. And well, of course, you yourself being an only child as well, we share that in common. We never had siblings. I mean, you got to play with your cousins a lot more than I ever did mine. But
Well, yes and no, but that's a
you
discussion
know,
for another time.
yeah, that's a talk for another time. You know, I have to admit the chemistry between Max and his sister um, was great. I mean, you could when he was annoyed, you could tell when he was like, "We need to save my sister." You could, I mean, it was believable. And
Mhm.
getting kids that can act as well as the kids in this movie did, especially and preteens or teenagers in particular, is not easy. But the kids and everything, I believe and everything were they did a very good job. And that's like I said, that's rare.
Yes, it is very rare, and I like the fact too that many of the stars of the kids that played them, Thora Birch, who played Danny,
Hmm.
Sean Murray, who played Zachary Binks as a teenager, went on to become stars themselves.
Yeah, I mean Thora Birch, she's had a pretty decent career. Um,
Sean
I,
Murray, we know, plays Timothy McGee in NCIS. He's had a solid
yeah,
20 years, almost 20 years playing that character.
yeah.
And interestingly enough, his stepfather was one of the producers of
Hmm.
Hocus Pocus.
Yeah. Well, that probably explains why you got the part too. Just a
That could be.
smidgen of nepotism, just a smidgen of nepotism, but harmless nepotism. So,
Right. Let
and
me ask you a question.
sure.
What was your favorite part of the movie?
You're gonna think I'm nuts for saying this.
No, I'm not.
The fact that the mom was dressed up as 90s Madonna. and and Max is like, "Mom, what are you supposed to be?" And she's like, "I'm Madonna." And when they get the spell put on them, she actually starts to poke. I'm so okay. One other thing. Now, most of the costumes for the kids and the adults in this movie are pretty generic, except for the mom. And there was in the background there was one kid who was wearing a Michael Myers mask, but if you blinked, you could have missed it. But when we were
Yeah.
watching it the other night, I was like, "That kid's wearing a Michael Myers mask. That kid's wearing a Michael Myers mask."
And I actually never caught it until you pointed that out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you blink, you miss it. But I was like, "Wait a minute." So they actually do have taste in good movies in Salem. But yeah, I have to say, Bette Midler and Kathy Najimy and Sarah Jessica Parker as the Sanderson sisters. They are a hoot. I mean, without them, this obviously, this movie would not work. But
Right.
the chemistry between the three of them was so on point, and they were so damn funny. I mean, they really were. And I was, like I said, this is not the type of Halloween movie I was accustomed to watching. I mean, if you'd asked me 10 years ago or more, if I would have ever watched Hocus Pocus, I'd have been like, that kiddie movie? Are you serious? No way in
Actually,
hell.
I think you might have said that when we first started dating, and I brought it up, but it's been quite a while ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And, being the open minded husband and everything that I am, I was like, I will do this for my wife. I will sit through this, but I am honestly, I say this, and I am honestly glad that I have. I am glad that you did not give up. You kept saying, "Hey, when are we gonna watch Hocus Pocus?" And then we finally watch it. She's like, "Okay, when are we going to review it?" I'm like, "Well, you pick the time, you pick the day, or you pick whenever it's appropriate." And you were like, "Well, let's do it at Halloween." I was like, "Okay." But I am truly, sincerely glad that you didn't give up. That
I'm
you,
glad too.
I mean, some of the best, some you've some movies I would have never touched. You were the one that encouraged me to at least give them a shot. Now, there's been one movie that I watched that you encouraged me to that I was like, I really don't want to ever watch this again, but we won't bring that movie up here. No, it's
Which
not a
movie was
bad.
that?
Well, now don't get me wrong, it's not a bad movie. It
That's
really
okay.
isn't.
I
It's just
don't. I'm just curious. I
um,
don't remember.
Anna and the King.
Oh yes, Anna and the King. Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that it's a bad movie. It's just not. It's not my thing.
And that's okay. I mean, it's a romantic historical movie, and that's not your cup of tea, and that's all right. It's my cup of tea. Again, with historical movies, I love those.
Yeah. Well, this is somewhat of a historical movie because it is a snapshot of the '90s in a lot of ways. I mean,
Mhm.
okay, we've got to talk about the bullies at least for a few minutes. Those two bullies, Ice and
Hold on.
whatever the
Ice and I don't remember his name either.
it was Ice and something. It was something stupid. It was a stupid name. But two of the biggest, okay, they come off all tough. They're like, let us have your shoes or you can't go by. And I've been like, you're not going to get my Let me put it to you this way.
Oh,
If those two,
Jay.
and who?
Jay and
Jay
Ice.
and Ice. Oh,
So go ahead.
I would have called him Jackass and Ice Brain. If those two had been bullies in my high school, we would have eaten them alive. They would
Difference
have not been
between
they would have not been the bullies. They would have been they would have been okay, let me put it to you this way. They would have been mocked by other geeks. Cuz those two are so they are so wannabe thugs. It is
yeah.
pathetic. It
I love
is
it when Danny or Thora Birch's character says "drop dead, moron" and stuff it, zit face. And she did it so perfectly too. And he's like, "Well, you
she
little,"
did.
and it was great.
I mean, she did she's like when you get owned by a when you get owned by a young kid, that is particularly sad. Oh, look at me! I got a leather jacket. My best friend, my buddy's wearing his cap backwards. He's got the word "ice" shaved in his hair. I'm like, you are so cliche. It's sad. I mean, even the bullies from the Power Rangers, Bulk and Skull. Good grief! Those two could give Bulk and Skull could give those two lessons on how to be an effective bully. They're just
Yeah,
sad and
I agree with
pathetic.
you.
They are
Yeah,
sad and pathetic. But the other thing, MB Geek brought this up just a few minutes ago. Billy Butcherson.
Doug
The,
Jones. Yeah.
now, how did I know you were going to say those two names? Well, gee, I don't know, Geek, because I detest the Power Rangers. I do know references. I mean, I'm sorry.
It's not funny you detest the Power Rangers, but you do know it.
Yes. Well, when it's
Yeah, well,
saturated all over TV and everywhere in front of you and everything, when you're in high school and go Power Rangers, I'm like, go kick me in the head and give me amnesia so I never have to remember the Power Rangers.
I loved the Power Rangers in the 90s.
The Power Rangers are a poor, cheap knockoff of a superior,
Okay.
and we
I
all
know
know
how
what.
you feel about them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
there, and not to mention Death Battle settled that dispute once and for all. Voltron is better than Power Rangers because Voltron beat the ever living snot out of the Power Rangers.
Yeah, Cry Me a River.
I'm not crying.
Well, obviously. Well, let me ask you this question about Hocus Pocus.
Mhm.
What did you think about Bette Midler's singing "I Put a Spell on You"? So that is
I
one
think
of my
she
favorite parts of the whole movie.
I think she did a really good job. She did. She did a really good job, but you can tell that they dubbed in the background the backup singers for Sarah Jessica Parker and Kathy Najimy.
I
You could
didn't
so tell. Honey, there's no way
really.
in hell they sound that good. No way. But, it's
Hmm.
forgivable because not everybody is as good a singer as Bette Midler.
Oh, that's true.
So I can forgive dubbed in background singers when it's Bette Midler doing her own singing.
Yeah.
But the fact that the parents thought that party hit or that dance was um went on for that long was to me hysterical. Um Ace, no, Bette Midler was not in the Star Wars Holiday Special. You're thinking of B. Arthur, the actress from The Golden Girls. She was in the Star Wars Holiday Special, but Carrie Fisher did do her own singing in the Star Wars Holiday Special, and I will say this of our late princess. Carrie Fisher had a beautiful singing voice. Of course, her mother was Debbie Reynolds, and Debbie Reynolds was um a pretty good singer
Had an
herself.
amazing singing voice. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I imagine she had lessons. And hello to the chat, to an old friend not seen in a while. Ding dong, hello to you as well, and happy Halloween. Boo to the J Man. J Man, good to see you. J Man, I'm going to say this. You should at least watch the first one. We will get into the second one here in a little bit. But you should watch the first one at least. It is, I think, and no, I'm not saying this because she's here. The first one is fun. The first one is fun. It's cute. It's entertaining. If you've got kids, if you've got grandkids, if you've got younger nieces and nephews, is a great movie to watch with them. Everything. It is a very entertaining Halloween movie. So
I think to add to that, you can watch the second one because it gives you more appreciation for the first one.
okay, good. J Man, good. So
Yeah, definitely good.
um well, we spent a little bit of time on the first one. If you want to move on to Hocus Pocus 2, we can, unless there's something else about the first one you want to discuss. I mean, if
Well,
there is.
I was just gonna tell my other favorite scene in the movie.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
probably the very ending of the movie
Mhm.
when Zachary Binks and Emily are reunited. And she's like, Zachary Binks, what took thee so long? And he says, sorry, Emily, I had to wait 300 years for a virgin to light a candle.
And okay, we have to talk about this. Why is it with any curse, it's always a virgin? Why
I
all
don't
the
know.
virgin hate? Why all the
I don't
virgin
know,
hate?
but this is the one thing my mother hated because this movie prompted me to ask her that question, what a virgin was.
What is a virgin? Of course,
And she
they
said,
answered the question
when you're
very
older.
humorously in the sequel. What's a virgin? It's somebody who's never lit a candle. And if you remember what I said, well, in a manner of speaking, yeah, that's true because candles are used when you're doing a particular activity.
I still remember my mother getting so flustered about that when I asked her what it was. She's like, I'll tell you when you're older. And I'm thinking, I'm 12. How much older do I have to be?
30. Knowing you're no, not to pick on your mom, but
No, you're not picking on her. It's okay.
she would probably said when you're 30. Remember the adventures of Baron as he says, please forget the virgins. We're out of virgins. I can honestly say I've never seen that movie, J Man, and everything. It's not because I dislike it, it's just I've never had the time.
But
But
anyway, that's just one of my favorite clips that has a memory. too. That's why I wanted to share it.
I have to say, one of my other favorite scenes is when the Sandersons captured Jay and Ice and put him in the cages. I'm like, how many bullies did I know that I wanted to do that to? Stick him in a
Yeah,
cage and put a fire underneath him. Not do anything to him, just leave him there.
yeah,
Of course, I know a few people now I would love to do that too, and some of them are on the internet, but I won't name names here.
well, it's like when the Jay and Ice called the Sanderson sisters chicks, and I was like, oh, this is not going to end well.
No, it is not. I'm like, you're dealing with three relatively powerful witches, and you call them chicks?
Yeah, and not just any chicks, ugly chicks. Yeah.
Only a face a mother could love. But yeah. Well, anyway, any other thoughts on the Hocus Pocus one, dear?
Just if you haven't seen it, be sure and watch it because it's a treat that you'll treasure for many years to come. So
Yes.
now I have.
And now I do as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, then we shall.
Going on to the disaster film.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a disaster.
Okay, no, that's too strong a word. You're right.
No, it's not a disaster. It's just. Okay, we're going to move on to Hocus Pocus 2. So, and just heads up, this will be a spoiler review because the movie has been out since late September. So, if you have not seen it, yeah, if you have not seen it already and you don't want it to be spoiled, then turn away now. Okay, J-Man, you have a good night. He's like, I'm out of here. I don't want to hear about Hocus Pocus 2. Either he's seen it or he doesn't want to know, and I can't say I blame him. Okay. Hocus Pocus 2. It starts off interesting enough, and we went down to one viewer. I'm blaming you. No, I'm blaming the movie.
Blame the movie.
Blame the movie. Thank you a lot, Hocus Pocus 2. You cost us 3 viewers. May you burn in hell. This movie starts off somewhat promisingly because it gives us a little more back history on the Sanderson sisters. And I will say it. The set design reminds me of another favorite movie that I love to watch around Halloween, and that is, of course, Sleepy Hollow. And we get the backstory on the Sanderson sisters, Winifred,
Mary and Sarah.
Mary and Sarah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we find out that they're almost separated and everything by the townspeople, particularly by the Reverend Tasker. And they escape into the woods, and they're followed by this really pretty bird, this really, really cool looking bird who turns out to be a very powerful witch. And she gives them book. We forgot to talk about book. We talked about everything else, but we forgot to talk about book.
We did talk about book.
But we can talk about book here. We can talk about book in the first movie too. So, but book is gifted to the sisters, and that sends them on their journey to becoming witches. But they're warned. There is one spell you are to never do because book doesn't like doing that spell because it has consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And the like I said, the opening is very good. I very much enjoyed it, but unfortunately, that's kind of where my enjoyment. So, sweetheart, your thoughts on Hocus Pocus 2, the opening at least?
The opening I thought was really interesting, and I really loved seeing the Sanderson sisters as children and getting to know a little bit more about their backstory, finding out their father was an apothecary owner. And so they grew up learning about all this stuff, making potions and lotions and things like that. It was just that was the pharmacy back then. It was an apothecary. So they already had it in their bloods blood to say the least. So
Mhm.
I was really, I really loved that part that they put into Hocus Pocus too, was digging and delving into more of their past.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought the three children that they used to represent the older sisters did a fantastic job of
Yeah.
imitating um,
Bette
Bette
Midler,
Midler and Sarah Jessica
Sarah
Parker
Jessica
and
Parker, and
Kathy.
Kathy Najimy. Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
Kathy
They
and
did a
Jamie.
really, they really got down their mannerisms as the Sanderson sisters, and how they walked, how they talked, all those sort of things. And we get to meet a live Billy Butcherson, and
I know.
Billy plays a bigger part in this movie. He really does, and everything. And we find out he's like, I only kissed her once. He's like, I didn't
Yeah.
even enjoy it.
And
He's like,
this whole time, you think that they were lovers, and that all they did was kiss once.
yeah. So it kind of renders part of that spell, the ingredients for that spell, non-functional, because he never loved her. She loved
Right,
him,
exactly.
but he never loved her, and love should go both ways, like what you and me have.
Well, another thing about that spell they kind of messed up on, one of the main ingredients is a petrified spider, like a real spider. They used a stuffed one, which
Yeah,
we'll get into. And that right there was like, okay, why did you guys do that? Why did you not go and find a bloody spider? You
yeah.
know,
Well,
kill it,
one
whatever
that
with it.
maybe one that a taxidermist had preserved, because that would
Yeah.
be a petrified spider.
Or an entomologist. I mean, something.
Yeah,
Not a
yeah,
stuffed
exactly.
spider that they won playing a game at a carnival.
Yeah, and okay, I hate to say this, where Max and his sister and Binks and Billy all had real good chemistry in this movie, in the first movie. The
Hmm.
three girls, I
That's the
just
problem with those three girls is they didn't flesh out their story very well, their backstory. They just
uh,
boom brought them in. Boom, here's the crisis. Here's the new three future witches. Pretty much is what it boils down to. And for me, I was like, I'm not okay with this because in the other movie, in the first Hocus Pocus, you got the backstory. You were brought into it slowly. This there was just nothing. It was just like boom, they're there. You know,
well, not only that. With the first movie, you met Billy's parents, and his parents were kind of goofy and silly, but you could tell they were loving, they were caring parents. They weren't bad parents.
right.
We
All
don't
you
even
get
meet.
from the one girl is that her mom's name is Susan, and she even refers to her mom as Susan. We don't even know who Susan is.
Well, not only that, the only other parent we meet in this movie is Cassie's dad, who turns out to be her, and her dad are descendants of the Reverend Tasker, and he's the mayor of Salem.
It's
And
Reverend Trask.
huh?
It's Reverend Trask.
That's what I said, Reverend Trask. And
Oh, okay.
the descendant is the mayor, Mayor Trask.
Right. Okay. Go ahead.
And it's it's just really rushed. It's just jointed. They're just like, okay, let's hurry up and get to the sisters again. And that's not what the first movie did. You had some build up to the reintroduction, or the proper introduction. Granted, we met the Sandersons at the beginning of the first Hocus Pocus movie through a flashback, but there was build up to them being resurrected. In this movie, it goes at breakneck pace. And the funny thing is, the sequel is actually 15 minutes longer than the original, because
Original. Yeah.
the original was an hour and 39 minutes. This one was an hour and 47 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
well, it's not even 15 minutes longer. It's maybe like 6 minutes longer, give or take.
one thing that cut left out that I think is a huge plot hole is how Gilbert, the guy that runs the magic shop where the Same Sisters home's at,
Yeah.
how did he make another black flame candle?
Yeah,
Because you
because
had to use the fat of a hangman if you follow the first movie.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
one person on the group that I belong to, Hocus Pocus group on Facebook, thought that maybe, but it's convoluted because we learned that Gilbert was a kid in '93 who sees his sisters flying. So a kid's not
mhm.
gonna go kill somebody like Ice or Jay still trapped in the cage. So how did he make the candle? All he says is it was not easy to do.
Yeah, and that's again
Not to mention the
that's
candle was completely ridiculous.
yeah, it didn't even it looked like a toe or something,
It was
and
just
I
very,
just
instead of it being a smooth cylinder shaped, it was crooked. Like whoever made it just didn't know what they were doing or didn't take the time to do it right. And I just felt that I mean, it just took away from the movie itself.
yeah, I mean, granted, the first movie didn't have the biggest budget in the world, but it had a decent budget, and they did a good job with what they had and what they did.
Hmm.
But this one is just the second Hocus Pocus is rushed. It's almost a copy, a beat for beat copy the of the first one, except with a few little different pieces tossed in, like the two girls, and I don't even remember the name, Becca, the one girl and everything, and her friend take the sisters once they get resurrected to a Walgreens.
Yeah, Becca and
I mean,
Izzy.
Becca and Izzy and Cassie. Okay.
Yeah, and then Cassie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's just
that's the other thing that was pointed out to me about the Walgreens scene is how did the Sanderson sisters, know how to take a selfie? How did they know that phone was going to take a picture of them?
they didn't.
Cameras hadn't even been produced in 1693, and the little time that they spent in 1993, there was no cameras used either. So how would they
No,
know what it was?
they didn't. It didn't
It
make a
was just
dry. They didn't. You know, I'm not saying Hocus Pocus a great is some earth-shattering great piece of cinema or anything, but it's a decent movie. It's a fun movie. But this one is just Hocus Pocus 2 was everything that Ghostbusters Afterlife or Top Gun Maverick wasn't. I mean, granted, you haven't seen either one. You haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, and you haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife. No, granted, we own it and everything, and we'll eventually watch it. And anything,
yeah,
but Hocus Pocus 2 is a legacy sequel done badly.
yes,
And if you're familiar with that term, if you're not, it's essentially a legacy sequel is a sequel to a franchise that takes many decades after the original, essentially.
right.
So,
In this instance, 29 years.
yeah. And
And you would think, as for that almost 3 decades, you would think
mhm.
Disney would have put together a better film. Now, I'm not going to run the film down entirely. There are some good parts to it.
Yeah, there is
You know,
some good stuff in there. Yeah.
and there's some funny moments as well. That's why I do. I'm not going to say don't watch it because it does give you more appreciation for the original once you see number two. And when I first
Yeah.
watched number two, I did get a laugh out of it. Watching it with you made me see more of the mistakes, which I'm glad because I wanted to get another person's opinion and view besides my
Yeah.
own.
Yeah, obviously. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I did have a few chuckles here and there, particularly with the dad when he's trying to get his his caramel apple, and he's like, "The caramel apple will change your life," and I'm like, "That's gonna be one hell of a caramel apple." I mean,
Yeah,
I'm like, dang, I want a caramel apple now. And
actually,
you
I thought the
know,
same thing when I first watched it first time.
but it's the one thing that really took me out of it was they had two musical numbers in this movie, and
Yeah,
they didn't need two.
no,
And the thing that really cheesed me off was the second one where they did a bad cover of one way or another. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I looked this up because I was like, we heard this on another movie not too long ago and everything. It was one that we went and saw together, and that was Cruella and everything. And we're like, now, obviously, they just used it as a part of the soundtrack for Cruella. They didn't do a musical number based off of it, obviously, but in Hocus Pocus 2, they do, and it sucks.
Yeah, it does suck.
It does. It absolutely sucks. And
Well,
they had a.
and
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I mean, what really started it going badly was in doing that first musical number that's saying, "Yes, Salem, we're back," and then doing this musical number in the woods like they're performing on stage, and you're kind of like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah. What are you? What in the
Yeah, I mean,
Sam Davis? What in the
yeah,
world are
and
you
it's not their
doing?
voices. It's. I mean, their voices are good. It's just it didn't fit the scene. It didn't fit the plot. It did, and
No.
even when they did one way or another, granted they did a good job with the rendition of it, but it just didn't. It just didn't do it for me.
No, it didn't. I mean, the musical number that they did for the first movie, where they put the townspeople in a spell, or put a
Yeah, I
spell
put
on
a
them,
spell on you.
and that was good.
Yeah,
But
that scene. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
one way or another, just they butchered the song. It
Yeah,
doesn't fit. It doesn't fit like with. Damn, I've gone blank. Not one way or another, but I'll put a spell on you works because they're witches. It flows and everything,
exactly.
but one way or another doesn't it doesn't work.
Yeah, it didn't fit
It's
the
just
scene at all. I mean, they walk on stage in the middle of a costume contest,
yeah, and
which
now that was actually kind of funny. I won't lie.
it was funny because you would have thought they would have won because I thought their costumes looked the best, and they didn't win. So, but then they belted out the song, and then it just didn't fit. It just sucked.
I mean, and the townspeople didn't even end up finding the mayor.
Well, yeah, they did, but
Yeah,
then they
but
didn't do
it
anything about
didn't.
it.
No, it didn't matter because they weren't even there to capture the mayor. They go after his daughter instead. So
Yeah,
why go through all of that?
exactly. It didn't make any sense. There was too many, and that's the basis. The what's what I'm looking for. That just seems to be the flow of the whole movie. These plot holes that didn't go anywhere. There's one here, there's one here, and every time you turned around, it's like, why are they doing this when they could have just waited on this, or vice versa?
Now,
It's
I
like they
will
were
admit,
trying to rush through it.
yeah, I mean, this movie goes at a breakneck pace. I mean, yeah, obviously it's not a super long movie. It's only an hour and 45 minutes.
47, yeah,
47
47 minutes.
minutes. That's it. But it felt like you blinked and they were on to the next thing. I mean, I didn't even necessarily find the when they were in Walgreens all that funny. Really, I'm like,
The
okay,
only
we've
part of
seen,
Walgreens I found funny was when the girls do the salt trick and they are able to stop Winifred's powers, and
yeah,
you see the blue from Becca on her hand, but neither
mhm.
one of the girls realizes what it is.
Or she
Uh,
didn't even, yeah,
yeah, but the Walgreens was just them eating the stuff. I mean, granted, I get the humor for some people, but for
yeah,
me, I was just kind of disgusted. I was like, I'm gonna go puke now. It just,
because
and I
they're
could see,
eating
yeah,
they're eating lotion. They're now
eating face masks,
yeah, they're eating face masks. Sarah Jessica Parker's character is
spraying on
lap
perfume.
spraying on perfume and making just like. And I'm gonna say this: the eyebrows for Sarah Jessica Parker looked bad.
I
Looked
didn't
so
notice the
bad.
eyebrows.
Yeah, her eyebrows just looked weird. I mean, they looked way too thick. I think they. And you mentioned something too, and everything about the other sister and everything, Mary. Um,
The other side, she used the other side of her mouth to be crooked, whereas in the first movie it was switched. And
Yeah,
Kathy,
Najimi.
how do you think? Yeah, Najimi. She did come out with a statement. So the reason they switched it was because of her. It was something that she had herself done because she couldn't talk out of the side of her mouth anymore, or something like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
Well,
was
okay.
something that was
Then
legit.
okay. Well,
But if
then
you didn't know that,
yeah, then I
if
can
you didn't know
forgive.
it,
I can tell.
yeah,
Yeah. I
right,
mean, and of course, you've got. Okay, I must say it. More time with Billy for this movie was good. I liked the
yes,
scenes with Billy Butcherson, him and Gilbert. I enjoyed those.
yes.
Those were just legitimately funny. And
And
the
I will
fact that
say that
he
Gilbert. Oh,
go ahead.
as I
No,
say,
go ahead.
Gilbert was also an interesting uh, addition to the movie. I
He
did
was.
like.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that he ran the magic shop and
Hmm.
the prince that he played and digging up Billy and everything. And then of course my favorite line when Billy said, "Stop! I'm a good zombie."
That yeah. Now that and then obviously that was a line from the trailer, and that gave me a laugh. But it did give me a laugh here too. He's like, "I'm not going to eat your brain." And Billy in this movie, I think Billy was the replacement for Binks because you had a talking cat and a zombie, but you had no talking cat, so you had the zombie.
Right.
So that Billy was, I think, one of the him and Gilbert, their scenes together was one of the bright spots of the film. I won't lie.
Yeah. Now the one other bright spots that I will say that I did enjoy seeing was um, the scenes where they paid homage to the first movie. Like you'd see clips from the first movie where the couples are sitting in their house and watching Gary and Penny Marshall play the devil and his wife from the first movie.
Yeah. Hmm.
Or you see some of the costumes in the crowd where they're dressed up as the devil and
Hmm.
Gary
Well, and
Marshall and Penny
also,
Marshall's characters.
the Max's mom. And I think you
Madonna's,
had
yeah.
you had a woman dressed up as Madonna. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that was a nice little callback. I like that.
Yeah, and,
And
and I
all.
did appreciate that they tried that. But one thing, and I mentioned this earlier before we went on for this,
Hmm.
that really, really aggravated me. I don't know if it's really true or not,
Hmm.
but the mother witch that gives Winifred book at the beginning of Hocus Pocus 2, her
Yeah.
costume is very much similar to Danny's in Hocus Pocus 1. Yet the producers and art directors and whatever, they came out and said, oh, that was just a coincidence. I find that very hard to believe because it's too close. The coloring, the likeness is too much close to resembling Danny's witch costume to not to be just a coincidence.
Minus the hat, but yeah. But here's the question though: did Danny's costume? Did it have that big embroidered eye on the stomach,
No, I
like?
don't. I don't. I'd have to look it up. I don't know. I'd have to watch it again.
Okay, but the other thing that I liked is Book was more of a character in this movie. He was a
Yes, he
Book
was.
was a little bit of a character in the first movie, but he was really a character in this. And it's funny that that they were able to give a purely inanimate object so much life.
Yeah, exactly.
And that for me was really impressive, particularly towards anything at during the third act, when the Sandersons are doing the spell to increase their power, and it's Book is like the Book cannot speak, but Book
Right.
can't emote,
Well, and he
and
can make decisions.
yeah.
Because remember what Becca told him? Well, told Book. I keep referring to Book as him,
Hmm.
but she told Book, "You have a choice. You don't have to do the spell." And that's when Book makes the choice and emotes, as you said, and
Hmm.
chooses Becca over Winifred.
Well, the funny thing is, and this is a minor nitpick in terms of Book, the fact that he was actually trying to hide from Becca in the magic shop, and then he's like,
Right.
And then now I can kind of see where they were going with that, because I think he senses that Becca isn't like Winifred or the other two sisters. She's not out for power per se, or out to
Right.
be evil. And, there is an old saying, knowledge is what you do with it. The
Right.
Sandersons used book for their own mischievous ends. And in the case of Becca and Izzy and Cassie, they're not evil.
Right.
So it's possible, it's more likely that Book sensed this and realized, okay, I can be with someone who won't abuse me or use me to do bad things, but use me
Right.
to learn. And that in itself is not a bad lesson from this movie or a bad theme from this movie,
No.
but the rest of the movie is, I hate to say this, because I generally don't like tearing down a movie, particularly because of the people that work so hard on it.
Right.
But in this instance, a lot of people's time and efforts and energy was wasted on this movie, and that's a shame.
Yes, it is a shame. I know that leading up to the movie's release on September 30th on Disney Plus, there was
Mhm.
so much hype, and Hurricane
Yeah.
Ian was about to hit Florida, and there was people on my Facebook page and the Hocus Pocus group that I belong to that were just like, I hope we don't lose power. I'm looking forward to this, and Disney Plus
Mhm.
is going to crash. And you know, once the movie had been out for about a week, everybody just kind of shut up about it. It's like it just
Yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't like it, and like you, I hate to run down a movie that people have worked hard on and put their mind and their heart and their soul into, but it just didn't come out as good as the first one. Nothing. I don't feel like no matter what they do from here on out, and there's been talk of doing a, a Disney Plus series with the three new girls. Nothing's going to be able to top the first one. It just never will.
There, you know, there are some movies that should never have a sequel, or if you do a sequel, you've got to get it just right.
Exactly.
Hocus Pocus didn't necessarily need a sequel because it ended satisfactorily. It resolved the main conflict. The Sandersons were destroyed. The Emily and Thackeray were reunited, and Max got has a better relationship with his sister and his parents now, and also he got the girl. So they all
Well,
lived happily ever after.
I think what might have maybe could have played a better part for Hocus Pocus 2 is if
Mhm,
they had Thora Birch, who played Danny,
mhm.
Omni Katz, who played Max, and Vanessa Shaw, who played Allison, come back and be a part of the movie. I
Yeah,
think if the girls had been their children or something like along those lines, I think it would have helped. I'm not saying it would have been, oh, this is as great movie as ever, but I think it would have gave it
it might have
more.
helped.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and
But they didn't
yeah,
pick them.
yeah, and well, and you don't know this obviously, but that's what they did with Ghostbusters Afterlife. They had the daughter and the son and the mom be, well, the grown up daughter was Egon's daughter, and the boy and the girl were his grandkids. So you had that tie back to the original series of films, the first two, and everything,
Exactly.
Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2.
It gives it
Same
a
thing.
solid foundation.
Yeah. With this, they're just starting over from scratch. They're just using the Sanderson sisters again as the common tie between the two films, when we know that the Sandersons were defeated. And then
Right.
you have this convoluted thing. Well, I made another black flame candle, and we're like, the other one melted down to nothing. Now, unless you
Yeah.
use whatever might have been left, if there was anything left of the original black flame candle as the source for yours, then that doesn't make a dang lick of sense.
Well, the other thing that didn't make a lick of sense too was, and this is the only part that I felt bad for Billy Butcherson's part, or
Hmm.
Doug Jones, who played him, was
Yeah.
when he said, "How long has it been since 1993?" He wasn't around that much to know what year it was.
No, then that is
He
a
wasn't even.
massive. I'm
Yeah, he
well.
wasn't. He
I'm trying to
by the
remember.
time.
Did go ahead, honey. I'm sorry.
Well, he by the time they woke him up, the only one time the reference of the year '93 is mentioned is by Thora Birch when the
Mhm.
sisters first show up back at the house after they're resurrected. Billy never hears it.
At
He's
least
too
not as far
busy
as I recall.
chasing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, he's too busy chasing the kids.
Yeah,
It's never mentioned at the high school. It's never mentioned at the town hall. So how did he know it had been 29 years? Again, a plot hole.
yeah. Now a minor one, but still kind of important.
But, but it still puts a damper on the first movie because it's like, what are you doing? Am I? Hey, this may be too strong a word, but for me, it's like it's desecrating the first movie. It's just stamping and stomping on everything that good that came out of the first movie and trying to make a brand new movie and be better than the first. Well, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, and that's just my opinion, but that's just how
Mhm.
I feel about it.
Well, and I'm sure there are people out there that probably thoroughly enjoyed Hocus Pocus, and there may be others like us who were like, "Yeah, I'm just going to stick to the first one. I'm not going to bother watching this one," because I took after we got done watching it today, I was like, "I'm going to take this off the watch list," and you were like, "Yeah, go ahead." So
Yeah.
I'm,
Well, and honestly, this the rating from Google for Hocus Pocus 2 is only a 2.9 out of 5 stars.
ouch,
Yeah.
jeez.
IMDb gave it a 6.1 out of 10, which I think is being generous.
I'd say that's being very generous.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't hate this movie. And I think
Right.
you know me. There are movies
Detest.
yes. I don't I after we were done watching this, I was like, I don't hate this. I just think it could have been better or it could not have been made period, but I don't hate this movie. And it's, you know me. You know me as well as anyone. You probably know me
Yeah.
better. You know me better than anybody who knows me online, pretty much, except for a couple of people. When it comes to movies, I try to look for the good in a film.
Mhm.
And I just could not as the movie went on, I was like, "Okay, I'm trying to get through this. I'm trying to get through this for you, and I'm trying to
I
get through
know.
this so we can do the review, and I'm trying to get through this so I can do the review." And once we were done, I was like, you could see you saw the expression on my face.
Well, I saw the expression on your face when they were doing the One Way or Another song, and I was like, "Oh, here it comes."
Well, yeah, I didn't go into a tirade, but I'm like,
Oh, you had your head down. You were just shaking your head, and I was like, "I know."
I was just like, I am not mad. I am disappointed. I am
Yes.
very, very disappointed.
And
But,
from my Facebook group, there was people that liked it, and there was people that didn't like it. Everybody agreed to just not spoil the movie for people who haven't seen it yet at the time. So I haven't really been on it much lately.
yeah.
But for me, if I had to give it a score on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 4, and that's being generous.
If I was going to give it a score, I give it a 3.
That's what I thought you said too.
No, I'll give it a 3 because of Gilbert and Billy. I'll give it a 3
Yeah,
because they were funny, and the opening sequence with the thing learning some more about the Sanderson sisters that I
right.
enjoyed and
History.
everything. The acting and everything in that sequence was really good.
Yes, it was.
But aside from that, whereas they had good child actors or good young actors for the first movie, I'm not going to say that the three girls who played Becca, Izzy, and Cassie were bad. They
No.
just had bad material to work
Yes,
with.
they had. Yes, I agree with that. Because, like I said, there was just no. You learn a little bit about their story from like a couple months, why they're not talking, why the two girls are, why
But
the
what
three
about their
girls are, you know,
families? Yeah, what
yes,
about
like
their
I said,
families?
the mom Susan. What about Becca's family? What about yeah, we know about Cassie's dad, obviously he's the mayor, but we don't know about Cassie's mom. We don't know. There's just too many plot holes. And one thing I learned from my screenwriting class, from my master's
Mhm,
courses, is that
mhm.
when you have that many plot holes, people are not going to watch it because they're going to have too many questions that are not answered.
Yeah, and when one of the biggest plot holes is, well, how did you make that candle? Well, it was really difficult. I'm like, I need more than that. Did you actually dig up a fat man that was hung and get some of his fat out? And if you did, I'm like, ew.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Well,
mean,
and
okay,
someone on Facebook made a comment that he killed Ice or Jay because Ice was kind of heavy set, but again, they left it blank, so you don't know. You're left wondering.
yeah. Now, I did not even mind that they used the Sandersons' house as a magic shop. I think that's actually kind of cool. I think it was pretty appropriate
Mm-hmm.
considering they were witches
Right.
and everything. But the rest of the set or anything or the setting for the movie was honestly kind of generic. I mean,
Well, and
I'm not saying the first one was like out of the ballpark stellar, but it was good. But this was
well, this
just.
the thing with the first movie was it was actually filmed in Salem, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
This movie was filmed in Massachusetts, but not in Salem because they weren't allowed access to some of the original buildings anymore. And they wanted
Mhm.
to take a totally different direction, which obviously they did.
Yeah,
And
obviously.
I think that hurt the sequel quite a bit. Now,
Yeah.
I understand they can't film in every historical place. I mean, so I know that the Max and Danny's house in the first movie is privately owned. So
Mhm.
I understand they might not be able to use that house, but there's
Mhm.
so many factors they could have just done better. And
Yeah.
one thing that caught my eye in the magic shop was the fact they had books bound with leather straps. Why? What was he gonna do? You know?
Well, potentially fly away because we obviously he can fly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but
My thing
go ahead.
was if he helped Gilbert make the black flame candle, he you would have thought he would have trusted Gilbert to help, bring the witches back. He wouldn't have just taken off, I feel like.
Mhm. Yeah.
So again, a point hole, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. No, and it's not a bad opinion, sweetie. You know, this movie also it makes the one biggest error.
That
It's it's not even particularly child friendly. I don't think any kid, whether regardless of, I don't think very many kids would want to sit down and watch this. Whereas the original Hocus Pocus is something that a full family could watch together.
yes,
This is a
but
movie that neither I don't think kids or even adults would find entertaining.
some have,
And
but yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, if this had been released in the box office, it would have
Oh my gosh,
it would have flopped.
yes, it would have.
It would have absolutely flopped. Now, I don't know what the box office was for the original Hocus Pocus, but I imagine it was decent. I mean, it's a movie that has had legs. It's kept its culture relevancy and everything, particularly around this time of year and so on. But
Well, I mean,
I don't.
the first movie won an award for the best costume design, won a Saturn award. When it was
uh,
released, um, I'm just reading some of the stuff here on
mhm,
the internet. 87% of Google users love this movie.
mhm,
And surprisingly, IMDb only gives it a 6.9 out of 10, which I think it should be a little higher, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, quibble.
That's just
Yeah,
someone's opinion. So,
yeah,
but overall, it's still it's held up. It's held its weight.
yeah. It's held up over the years. It's something that people watch on a regular basis, particularly during this time of year. And it is proof that you don't have to have a bunch of blood and gore and monsters and all that sort of stuff to be a good, entertaining Halloween movie. I mean, most people, when you think of Halloween, you think of, like I mentioned before, you think of monster movies, you think of slasher films, you think of
Right.
the macabre and the gothic. This is more kid slash family friendly. And
Right.
Halloween has kind of gone in that direction over the last several decades, and that's not a bad thing. I mean,
No.
Halloween is now something the whole family celebrate together. It's not just seen as a holiday for kids. It's seen as a holiday for everybody. And that's a good thing.
Exactly. Right.
And growing up as I did, watching the films that I watched and everything, I had kind of a broad spectrum of stuff I watched. I mean, the most kiddified Halloween thing I ever watched really was Charlie Brown. Was it's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown.
Yeah, me too.
And you know now I have this, and I'm happy to say I will happily watch the original Hocus Pocus. Am I gonna watch the other one ever again? Not
Hell
likely.
no.
Yeah, not likely. Not unless I'm
I don't know.
extremely drunk. So, not unless I am just like, hey, honey, why don't we watch Hocus Pocus too? Because I'm wasting out my mind. I will remember it.
If you're that if you're that drunk, I'll put in the Rise of Skywalker just for the hell of it. Just for that expression right there. Because then I'll videotape it and show it to you later when you're not drunk. Your breathing does not scare me.
Anyway, well, sweetie, any other thoughts on Hocus Pocus or Hocus Pocus 2?
I think just if anybody watches this stream or is watching it right now,
Hmm.
the first one, definitely watch it. If you want more appreciation for the first one, go ahead and watch number two. I'm not saying it's a horrible, terrible movie, but it could have been done better.
Yes, it could have been done way, way better. So,
But don't take our word for it. Watch it and find out for
simply,
yourself.
yes, as always, don't just take me and the missus word for it. Check it out for yourself. So, well, anyways, folks, that is going to be the review for this evening. I do, of course, want to thank the one and the only Mam Ambassador for joining me this evening. I do want to let you all know I will be back Tuesday evening. Anything, time to be announced with my good friend, another long time regular here on the Ambassador Wing, Mr. Zach Leary, and we'll be doing a ultra retro review of a favorite film of his and everything. And it's one that I have not watched before, but it is one that I have been intrigued by. Uh, we are going to be doing a review of an adaptation of a classic by the great author and poet Edgar Allan Poe, The Fall of the House of Usher, starring Vincent Price. So I will be letting y'all know what time that will be Tuesday, but that will be Tuesday evening. I look forward to seeing you all then, of course. I will be back this coming week with more Halloween festivities. We will be doing a review, a comparison review, a retro and ultra retro review of a true classic from the black and white era and from the 90s. And we'll be doing a comparison of the original Bela Lugosi, starring the one and the only Bela Lugosi, and Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, starring Gary Oldman. And of course, we'll also be doing another goofy, silly, creepy, kooky, altogether ooky review of the Addams Family films, starring Raul Julia and Angelica Houston. So keep an eye out for that as well. So, but that all being said, folks, you have a great evening, my dear. A lot of
Y'all
fun.
have
I'm
a good
glad to
evening too.
stay ambassadorial. Have a great night. Happy Halloween, Boo. And this is Ambassador and Madam Ambassador signing off.
Signing off.